Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back, Van LFR family. Look, we're about to check out some Russell Brand. Reason why I'm checking out his channel is because as far as receiving new information on a daily basis, this guy has probably the most fair take that I've seen on the internet, if that makes any sense. And I like fair takes, all right? And yeah, I guess I agree with a lot of his takes too. So that makes me feel good. I mean, it's good to go into a room full of like-minded people. Just saying, especially if you're learning and you're becoming better and you're growing at the same time. Why not, right? All right, so if you enjoyed this reaction though, if you can hit the like button for me and share this somewhere, that would be amazing. Let's get into it. He's talking about that C word that I would not mention.
If the response to the pandemic was primarily about saving lives, why did nothing happen until it affected the stock market?
Money.
Hello there, you 5.6 million awakening wonders. Thank you for joining me on this voyage towards the light.
Money
If you're not a
runs
subscriber
everything,
yet, please subscribe right now. Now, as you're aware, we were
Hold
told...
on, what is brother at right now? He was just now at 5. He just now hit 5 million. He is at 5.6 million already, man. Shout out to this guy. That's what's up. That's what's up. He deserves it, man. He works his tail off. He's very nice, and he involves like the Holy Spirit in his videos as well. So I appreciate that.
that the response to the pandemic was about saving lives. Whether it was the vaccine mandates or the lockdown response, everything was focused on human lives. Everything was focused on health. In my conversation with Matt Stoller on my podcast Under the Skin, we talked about how the pandemic was essentially ignored until it began to affect stock prices. Conversations of this nature are fantastic because Matt is a Washington insider with a completely different perspective on politics from most ordinary people. Stay with this conversation to the very end and let me know what you think of it in the comments.
I feel that we have to do something somewhat radical, Matt, and I don't know why someone as bold in their thinking and as articulate in their communication as you would assume that it has to be sort of housed within the two legal entities that you've described.
Well, so this is a really good point. I mean, I think the radical piece that's sort of drained out of U.S. politics, Western politics, presumably, but U.S. politics more is the metaphysical question of Judeo-Christian, the ethical foundations of the American state were religious, and that, I mean, I think people when people don't have a metaphysical language to communicate with each other, they create cults, and I think that a lot of the culture warring that you see is imbuing like traditional sanctification over political figures. Like if you look at Ruth Bader Ginsburg, what people were saying about her was effectively making her a saint, right? All the religious iconography. The same thing's true. Like on the Democratic side, you see a huge amount of sanctification of political, cults of personality, basically. And I think you see that on the right somewhat as well. I would say, when I talk about like the turgid nature, the slow nature, like it's very exciting intellectually. But I will say that the reason it's so slow, there's nothing inherently slow about bureaucracies. We happen to have bureaucracies that are slow by design right now. The reason is because the Federal Reserve has been printing, I'd say something like since the financial crisis, they printed about $9 trillion, which was a friend of mine wrote a book called The Lords of Easy Money about the Federal Reserve. And he says,
Oh my God, 9 trillion? What the holy flying Frank? That's why they see when they're capable of doing that type of thing, obviously they're not going to take money as seriously as the people who are actually suffering behind it. No, they're not. They're going to believe that, you know what? Shh, let's shake things up again. Shh, let's shake things up again. Shh. Like they're trying to just make it so when it's not so, not allow it to be organic. That's what LeBron James does, right? Something that he does, he like to just start a new team, mix it up a little bit, get whoever you want, and then play again, and then do it again, and then get. That's why a lot of y'all don't like him. That's why my family actually really like him, because he shakes things up a bit. But he's not responsible. He's not irresponsible with it. It seems like the federal government's been a little irresponsible with it.
They printed 600 years of money within the span of 10 years or something like that.
Wow.
And when you do that, what happens is the culture becomes one on which commerce is a big part of human society, right? Always has been. Commerce becomes less about doing things, building things that may solve a purpose, and more about hustling over how to get a financial asset that will escalate in value. And so right now we're in this very weird, of the last 10 years since the financial crisis, or I say the first financial crisis, but it's the last 12, 14 years since that financial crisis, we've been in this very strange period where people think about government and commerce and finance and stuff as like, how do we rush to get in on the next like asset valuation craze, and nobody in government wants to do anything to affect that. So the bureaucracy, and I mean Greece, Podemos, all those guys, Syriza, they all failed, right? Because they were caught in the same like financial trap, which is like, we need to sustain high financial like asset values, or else people will lose the perception of what they have, like their perception that they have this wealth, as opposed to actual wealth, which is being able to make things that people need. And so we're kind of like trapped right now in a financial system which has like excessively elevated asset values, and if we try to change anything, that will lower asset values and cause a reordering of our social hierarchies. And so when the Fed right now has to actually pop those asset bubbles, and when the Fed does that, when you do see a financial shakeup, right, then what you will see is like all of a sudden things can move really quickly. So I don't know if I was paying attention to COVID in like January and February because I'm obsessed with China, and they were like, oh, there's this respiratory disease.
Hold on, before he goes into that, I just want to say I'm not stopping him while he's doing a whole lot of talking about federal government and their monetary systems and whatnot. I don't know a whole lot about them, so I'm learning to just sit down, see what he's talking about. All right, okay, I'm learning right now. You know what I mean? I should be taking some daggone notes. Where's my daggone notebook? I gotta find my notebook, but I need to take my. No, I ain't gonna take any notes right now. I should, but I'll go back to it. But that's just letting y'all know that's why I'm not doing a whole bunch of talking behind this. Okay.
February because I'm obsessed with China, and they were like, oh, there's this respiratory disease coming from China. January, February of 2020. There's this respiratory disease in China that's shutting down the country, and I'm like, that seems bad. And
that seems bad
about it, and being like stocking up on food and like medical stuff and like doomer prep stuff, and but the moment when policy elites in the U.S. took it seriously, and I'll never forget this, it's not when like public health people were like, oh, maybe this is a thing. It's when the stock market went down, right? It's like then people were like, oh, this is serious. People with money are actually like betting on this being a thing, right? And so that's how we determine, you want to get really like at the core of how we think about policy. It's all about whether the stock market is going up and down. And it's been that way since probably the 1980s. It's not.
I know a lot of people, I'm just going to say this, not a lot of people. I know more than a few people who has made a lot of money off of the mass illness situation. Yeah. So it's I understand exactly what he's saying. All these people with money looking at it, they know what it is. They know the opportunity that can come from it. So they start to, place their bets. And some of them was placing their bets hoping for the best, and some was placing their bets hoping for the worst. But at the end of the day, a lot of people were making a lot of money, are still making a lot of money from this. And I'm not going to name the companies who made most money. I'm poking people in the arms. I'm not even going to say nothing. Not even going to say nothing.
Inherent to capitalism. There is no such thing. I don't think there is such a thing as capitalism. I think we have lots of different systems over time. Things are very flexible, as you noted. Humans can live in all sorts of different ways. What the problem, like what FDR did in the 30s, was not that he made the stock market go up or down. His main accomplishment was making the stock market irrelevant. And that's what we need to get to. We need to make these financial markets irrelevant to how we make social decisions. And right now, they are so dominant because of the policies that the Federal Reserve, this kind of like the ultimate deep state institution, has pursued, to warp our economy and ultimately warp ourselves. And that's like,
Amazing.
you want the revolution. It's going to happen, an intellectual revolution, a peaceful, transition. It's going to happen when this huge, like trillions and trillions of dollars of asset bubbles.
I'm sorry, I had to point this out. Do you see how locked in Russell Brand is? This guy, he's he likes to talk too. He can talk his tail off. But right now, he's just listening. He's listening. He's taking it all in. He's probably considering any questions he may have from this. But a lot of his questions that he might have had could very well be answered right now as he's listening. And maybe that's why he's so, locked in. I like that right there. I don't know why I had to point that out, but I just want y'all to notice that too, just in case you missed it. He is really, really paying attention. And that's why, honestly, I'm trying to get that from him a little bit. I'm trying to get a little bit of that to rub off on me because in my own walk, in order for me to learn, I don't learn how a lot of other people learn. I actually got to really, 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 really pay attention in order to be able to really take something in and, and everything and be able to regurgitate it. Okay.
This huge, like trillions and trillions of dollars of asset bubbles, when that pops, we're gonna have to reorient and reconfigure how we do things. That could be very dark, it could be very good, but that is like how I think about it. So what is creating the stagnation and the bureaucracy is this unreal moment of like bubble finance.
That's beautiful. Yeah, so it's an abstraction to some degree. Like when you talk about like 600 years worth of finance being pumped out in a 10-year period, when you talk about a kind of a constructed reality, an economic reality that's sort of to faith-based and confidence-based and requires our commitment in order to exist, and that then begins to determine political decisions and like a global level. When one says from a metaphysical perspective, we're living in an illusion, we actually are. Our reality is being determined by sets of fictions that are no more real than particular sets of religious ideologies.
Yes, yes, yes. You better preach, brother.
That are no more real than particular sets of religious ideologies, and many of them are tethered to deep archetypal emotions that all human beings feel and are sort of somewhat ubiquitous, somewhat universal even, and perhaps therefore have a deeper reality and ought to have a greater influence when it comes to sort of making decisions for how to organize systems, how to organize the planet. Matt, I want to guide you into the choppy waters of the wonderful world of conspiracy. Now, when like a
quick story about So there's this part of my book, and it's about the 1925 land bubble in Florida. By the way, every financial crisis involves Florida and Citibank. Those are the two things. That is one thing I learned in my book and when doing research. So there was this town there, everybody was speculating on Florida real estate and in the 20s. And like people hadn't been they didn't care if they were in Florida, like they were just trading lots of land. And there was this one town called Nettie that became like there was speculative fervor and people were trading lots of land and buying and selling it. And it turns out later on, people realized that Nettie didn't actually exist.
Wow.
It's a great story because when you have a lot of land in Nettie and someone is willing to buy it for a certain amount of money, even though it doesn't exist, even though the reference point doesn't exist, it still has value, right? The fraud has value until it doesn't, right? And that's what's weird about like a financial bubble, is that things are frauds, or they are just like completely disconnected from anything in reality, but they still have value as long as the fraud keeps going, as long as the Ponzi keeps going. And that's kind of like where we are, I think, right now, where a lot of things that people are like, this is crazy, this doesn't seem to make any sense.
He said, as long as the Ponzi keeps going. Wow. Wow. As long as the Ponzi keeps going. That was heavy, man.
Now, where a lot of things that people are like, this is crazy, this doesn't seem to make any sense. You could look at like crypto or meme stocks or whatever it is. They're like, this is nuts. But it's like, it's true, it's nuts. But as long as the music keeps going, right, people are going to keep dancing.
If you enjoyed that conversation, you can hear the rest of it.
All right, so thank you, Russell Brand. I appreciate you, brother. Yeah, think about that. I've heard many things. I've heard many things before, about what could possibly be afoot. And a lot of this stuff is planned, and we're falling right into it in many different ways. And then one day that bubble might just... Does that mean everything that we thought we were investing into, we actually had had a chance of being successful doing, was not a real thing, or could be stripped from us like this? It's so much stuff, man. There's so much stuff. What type of legal ramifications are there for the companies who benefited more than anybody else during this pandemic? Please let me know whatever y'all want me to know in the comments below. And if you have yet to hit that subscribe button, please make sure you do so on your way out the door. Once again, guys, I'm Van, and now we are all the LFR family, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video, hopefully inside the Patreon as well. Y'all have been amazing per usual, man. Love y'all.